guys, I'm going to attempt to explain this to you. It might be a little shaky, so bear with me. So you have an activity. It's an allegory activity. Allegory is when you uses abstract ideas and principles to define characters, figures, and events. So it can be employed in prose and poetry, obviously with prose here, with the story of Mice and Men, with the purpose of teaching or explaining an idea or principle. And we've talked about this with chapters 1, 2, and 3 before we left. These characters represent bigger things, that they take on places in society, and that Steinbeck writes about people that are marginalized, people that are pushed to the shadows, people that are overlooked or treated poorly, or vice versa, people that do that to other people. So you have all these different characters in this book, and most of them are, outsiders in that effect. So what you're going to do is you're going to examine some of the main characters, not all of them, but many of them. There are a couple links here if you want more on allegory. There's a couple links that you can watch and get more information about that. Steinbeck uses characters of Mice and Men to stand for or represent an idea in society. So for each of the following characters, create a symbol that represents his characters. You can copy and paste. I'm going to show you guys how to do this with one of the characters. So I'll do an example for you. You can copy and paste that image. And then under the image in proper MLA format, you're going to write down one piece of text evidence from the book that shows support for your representation. And you're going to explain, either explain how this connects to the quote, or how it proves the quote, if you will, or just explain briefly how this character does represent this in your own words. Okay. And you have characters Lenny, George, Curly, Crooks, Candy, Curly's wife. So there are 6 characters. Please don't delete them. If you can, it would be easier to use a different color so it stands out, pops out a little bit. So let's start with Curly's wife because that's where it's at right now. So I'm going to first pick out a symbol for her. So I'm going to go into, I already did this ahead of time, go into Google, and I'm going to choose lipstick. So I'm going to take a lipstick. I'm just going to take this one, and I'm going to copy it. I really hope this works. And I'm going to paste it. And I'm just using the okay. And then you should be able to see this button right here, wrap text, break text in the line. So I'm going to do the middle one, break the text, and then I can place it kind of wherever I want to. I think I'm not very good with Google Docs as I am with the other. So let's place this over here maybe. I'm not sure. And then right here, I'm going to find a quote that I think shows what she represents from the text. Okay, so I found a passage that I'm going to quote, and it is right here. So I'm going to quote that. Okay, so I put 2 quotes on there. So one from her perspective, it says, seems like none of them care how I gotta live. I tell you, I could have made something of myself. The second one is when they're talking in the bunk and Candy's telling them about Curly's wife, and he says, well, you look her over, mister. You see if she ain't a tart. This basically implies that she really is just seen from looks, and that's how people judge her, is based on her looks, and that they give her kind of a bad reputation at that, so this lipstick that makes her seem like a tart, or that she's just a pretty face. and nobody really seems to care or really look out for her. And she's really all alone, and she's not a great person. You know, she says some horrible things to Crooks. She's definitely a flirt. But with what she's surrounded with and how young she is and kind of the situation she's been put into, you kind of feel for her, even though she is kind of terrible. And of course she has this Eve-like quality, you know, and she's of course to blame for everything that goes wrong with George and Lenny. It's all Curly's wife's fault, of course. Blame it on her. So I said in this quote, she shows, speaking of the one that she did, or the one that she said, that no one really cares about her well-being. She's completely dependent on her husband and is incredibly lonely. And the men just see her as a pretty face, jailbait. They call her a tart, and of course worse. She flirts to get attention, but in the end she has no real sense of self. Oh, it says or self, of self. Let me fix that. And she thinks she could have made it as an actress. She has a lot of regret for kind of her decisions that she made involving Curly. You know, she doesn't seem to like him at all, and he doesn't seem to treat her very well. And so Steinbeck really has her representing, you know, women at this time who were just voiceless. You know, people judge them based on their looks and their actions, but they were very limited in what they could do and what could they be. And, you know, they went from being daughters to wives and mothers, and, you know, they couldn't do whatever they wanted to do. They couldn't take care of themselves, really. And so she really represents that idea. And so that is Curly's wife. So that's the idea of what you guys are doing with these allegories, just saying, you know, how does Candy represent a certain group of people? How does Crooks represent a certain group of people? Et cetera, et cetera. So do your best with this. We will be going over this at some point later next week. We'll be checking answers on questions and things. So keep working and keep checking in. And if you have questions, let me know. All right.